a hero who is about to face his greatest challenge.
You will always be weaker than I.
What can you tell me about a 7-foot lunatic hacking away with a broadsword at 1 o'clock in the morning, New York City, 1985?
Not much.
This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1802, Retro Movie Review, Highlander.
Welcome to Comic Geek Speak. I'm Ian Levinstein.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. Better known in this century as Adam Murdo.
I can't compete. And I'm Chris Everly. Nice way to start us off, Ian. Well done.
Most things don't react well to bullets. Oh, wait, wrong movie. Sorry.
It's hard to resist. It's hard to resist. There can be only one. And welcome one and all to the show. If only it was 1801, so I could really emphasize it. But it is 1802. That's just the way life works. And yes, we go back to the retro movie review format tonight for the Highlander.
Yes.
And before we even get started, there was only one. There were never any sequels. There were never a TV show. There were never movies. Just this one movie. Everything's fine. We're just going to come from there.
Just to be very clear.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe they were still coming out with sequels as of like 2007 for this thing. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's what I found out doing some searching. I didn't know that there were some that recent.
Yes.
Oh, this became quite a franchise.
Yeah, it sure did. And we'll get into further information on that as the episode moves forward. But before we do that, as has become customary here on the beginnings of the episodes, we would like to remind you that we are sponsored by you, the listeners, at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. 93 patrons, $275. A nice round $275 we're up to at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping this show running in more ways than one. You guys are awesome. And you help support the show and make sure that we can continue to do it. And that's what matters more than anything else.
I like round numbers.
Me too. But you can give more than this, by the way. We're just saying. I mean, that just we don't need to keep it just at 275. We can get higher. All right, we get it. Patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. Thank you guys so much for your support. And a reminder from the Murdo, as this episode will come out with just a few days left, as we did indeed extend our deadline for the best of 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, folks. We've got the Comic Geek Speak Best of 2020 Awards coming up real soon, and we wanted to give you guys a little extra time to submit some nominations in our 16 categories for those awards. So you've got now until 11:59 p.m. EST on Sunday night, February 28th. So just visit thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com or our super group on Facebook, the Comic Geek Speak super group, where you can find a list of the 16 categories in which we're accepting nominations for awards. And send in your list. Please nominate something in 8 of the 16 categories to bestof@comicgeekspeak.com before time runs out. And just make your voice heard in these proceedings as we try to suss out what was the best in comics of one of the worst years on record in every other respect.
Yes, exactly. What did you read to keep you sane? Let us know. All righty. And before we get into the main nitty gritty of it, Shane, you got a package.
I do. I got a package. It came a little bit late because of the way shipping has been lately. And then because of scheduling of guests and whatnot on the show and things I could and couldn't make, it's presented now. A card for Christmas time.
Ah, very nice.
Happy holidays. Whoops. Inside it says, "Dear Shane, Adam, Chris, Ian, Pants, and the whole CGS family. Warmest and safest wishes from Lockdown Central, and may 2021 bring us all the peace, good cheer, health, and better comics we all deserve. Ho, 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 best Constantine. Keep up the grand work. The card says, may your pleasures be great, your joys many, and this holiday season, the nicest of any.
Ah,
Very nice.
And then
party. I like it. Thank you.
he sent a gift in nice,
Oh.
shiny
Ooh.
Santa. And, oh,
You
there's
can see the S shield reflected, turned bizarro in the reflective
Yeah.
wrapping paper.
That's actually the
is-
gift, Bird. That's the gift.
That is a foam party favor that Carlene found on clearance somewhere. So I have a Batman somewhere and a Flash one.
Very nice.
Yeah, that hangs on the wall. There's a Kermit you can't see. And
See a little flash of green there.
And now, as the present gets opened, I fill time with the sound of my voice.
Oh.
wow,
Oh my.
He's a beauty.
Kotobukiya Star Wars Bounty Hunter Bosk 1/10 scale pre-painted model kit. That's awesome.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's Kotobukiya, I believe.
Kotobukiya.
Yeah, it's whoa.
Thank you.
That is
Wow.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I'll open it up and see how to put it together, and it will reside in the studio whenever we go back to that.
Terrific.
Excellent.
But that's cool.
Yeah.
Very awesome.
That's
Thank you very
nice.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he sent out an animated like digital Christmas card via email too. Did you
Yep.
guys get that too?
Yep.
The Jackie Lawson, I think, is the name of the artist.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Constantine, for all those gifts.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Yep.
Always nice to get anything, and whenever it's something that fancy.
Our listeners are always generous when they send
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I knew something was coming. He contacted me and said he was sending something, and then it kept taking longer and longer. And he's like, "Did you get it?" I'm like, "No, I think it's just shipping delays." Because even today, I still have. Let's see, I had something ship on the 5th of February and the 12th, and they're still stuck in Monroe, New Jersey, at some depot center.
Jeez. Yeah.
Delivery in general has been slow with the
Yeah.
pandemic, and then also with the storms ravaging much of the
Oh
middle of
yeah,
the country.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I totally understand.
Yeah.
I just, yeah.
I mean, I know some people who didn't get their Christmas cards from family until like
Mhm.
mid-January.
Oh yeah.
So that's
We just got one returned here at the house from a non-deliverable address, and that was yesterday.
wow.
Yeah.
We actually do have a few more Christmas gifts to open at the CGS studio,
Oh.
including our annual mailing from our friend Dr. Clark. Over
Oh,
Always a high point. Always a high
oh,
point.
Very
Though we can't blame any other
No.
factors, not the Postal Service or the weather or the pandemic. It's just the fact we're never in the studio anymore.
We'll get there.
So
No,
yes, and when that day comes, we will unwrap those gifts and give proper thanks to those who sent them on the air. So if you did send something, and there are a couple of you out there, just rest assured.
Yes. We have not forgotten about you. They just are at the studio.
hopefully none of them were a cat.
Yeah.
Oh
Well-
yeah, cats like food.
Yeah, that could be bad.
I think we'll be able to tell by the smell. Meanwhile, I'll start us off with a quick screen share of the poster, the very orgasmic poster. For
Well, it's the quickening.
yes, it is for this movie, The Highlander. There can be only one, featuring original songs by Queen. Because clearly you have to announce that on the poster, because that is one of the major selling points of this movie, most definitely.
Oh yes, and one of which I was completely unaware when I sat down to watch it for the first time.
Oh, excellent. We're 3 out of 4. Yes.
Right.
So I'm another first timer. Chris is the only one that's watched this movie before now.
Yes.
Well, I
indeed.
thought I had. I even have a DVD of it, but as I'm watching it, I don't think I ever saw it before. I know I've seen other parts. I've seen other more recent movies, not the ones
Right.
from 2007 and the one right before that, but I have seen some, and I've watched the show, but I really don't think I ever watched this first movie.
Well, allow me to give. I should explain to the audience why this film was chosen, because I can already tell I probably like it the best out of the 4 people here. So, when Sean Connery passed away, which was late last year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, an actor I've loved since I was a kid, and an actor who's 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 been in a lot of different genres. And a lot of the films he starred in definitely kind of fall into the geek wheelhouse. I mean, when you think of fantasy like this film, or
Time Bandits.
Time Bandits, or Zardoz, which is a film Murd and I really have to talk about on the air at some point someday because you just have to. Science fiction like Outland, of course, the entire James Bond canon, all of that. And
Sure.
he's an actor I've always loved. What was that? I'm sorry, Ian.
No. I just said sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought we should, pick one of his movies and talk about it. And this film came out 35 years ago in 1986. And thanks to Ian's research, we know the exact date, August 29th.
Jeez.
And it's a movie. I didn't see it when it came out. I was 13, but I saw it not long after on HBO or something like that. And I've always loved it. I've watched it or had it on in the background, kind of like Shane when we just kind of put movies on while we're working, scores and scores of time. And I felt in our retro review format, this would be a great movie to talk about, considering Connery's recent passing.
Sure.
And all the better since three of you really hadn't seen it before. So
And maybe I watched it on HBO years ago, but part of why I really don't think I've seen it, or at least it didn't leave a memorable impression back then, is because I love Clancy Brown. I love Queen. And for me not to remember that either of those two things are in this movie kind of bothered me that I'd never seen it.
Well, and what I'm looking forward to, Shane, is this is one of those movies that I loved as a kid. And as I watch it as a middle-aged man, I still love it. And I'm going to talk about that, of course, at length. But I can also understand if you've never seen this movie before, it's probably not going to have the same impact.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the discussion. And to piggyback on something Shane said, one of the best parts of this movie for me is Clancy Brown. So, and I'll talk later on about the scene in the church, which is one of the most deliciously villainous scenes I've ever seen in a film. It's like, it's tremendous. It's like eating scenery. It's so good. So
the clothespins hanging from
his neck wound.
Yeah.
Taped on.
And I'll also add, Chris, so the date you gave is actually the date for the UK release.
Oh, okay.
This is even more timely, as it will be 35 years since US release on March 7th.
Oh, yeah. Terrific.
Yep. So we're very, very close to that with the release of this episode. So that all works out in the end.
And as we were joking before, another reason why I wanted to bring it up is this is a movie that spawned an extensive franchise, both on film and in television, and I've seen none of it. I've only ever seen.
You didn't watch anything else?
Film. Well, you know why? Because everyone I trust has always told me the sequel is so awful.
Yeah.
And there was politics behind why they did what they did with that movie that I've never had a desire to watch it.
And I know that there's a version. I know that there's a version out there that cuts out like all the alien crap. Like
I call it the Renegade cut.
Yes, exactly. And they try to make it like a watchable movie. It's similar to something that I may have brought up on the show before. There's a fan cut that cuts together Superman 3 and 4 into one movie called Superman.
Really?
It's called Superman Redeemed.
I like it.
Yeah, they take out all the Richard Pryor stuff and they try to put a narrative together that makes at least a semblance of sense. And it's actually not that bad. It's pretty watchable. They use the setup actually of the rocket going up, the missile going up from Superman 2 as the start of the movie. And then from there, everything else happens, and it's a little bit more watchable. But yeah, I'd love to get everybody's initial impressions since they are actually initial impressions. And Murd, might as well start off with you. Thoughts on the movie?
Okay. Well, this is my first exposure not only to the original Highlander movie, but to the franchise as a whole. I've never seen any of the sequels or the syndicated series or anything like that. But I've been hearing about it. I've been hearing it referenced and described by others in the geek community, including some of my friends on this show and in the CGS community. for years, to the point that I feel like I knew what it was going to be about. I knew the general premise, immortal swordsmen walking the earth for centuries, part of a hidden race of immortals who are prone to chopping one another's heads off and absorbing their powers. I had kind of assumed that it was all just within one family that this was happening. And apparently, no, it's more like spontaneous genetic mutation that can occur anywhere in the world, anytime in the world. So these immortals sprung up not just in the Scottish Highlands, but all over the place. For example, Connery's character, who was apparently Egyptian originally. So that was a little bit different. And I must say, I've always been interested in the core concept here. This well thought out, if you'll pardon the overused expression, mythology. The idea of this race of immortals who seem to have this whole system of rituals and traditions among themselves, and who have this prophecy of the gathering, where eventually their number will dwindle down to the point where the few that remain will be drawn inexorably by fate to a single spot, and then kill each other to the point that only one of them will be left to inherit all the power. And then who knows what will happen. I've always kind of wondered what form that power would take once the final prize has been awarded. I've got to say, having seen the movie, it doesn't quite deliver on the full promise of its core concept. I kind of wish that we'd gotten a little bit more backstory on these immortals, where they came from, and how they developed all these rituals and lore that they seem to share among themselves. And I was a little disappointed by the nature of the prize itself. Also, the special effects I found were maybe a little bit beneath the state of the art, even for 1986. They appear to be largely stagehand based. Although there were some interesting bits of animation towards the end, like in the final Quickening when Connor receives the prize. That was fun to watch.
I especially like the wire you could see holding him up.
You could.
I did catch that. I'm like, oh God.
There was once, during the battle between Connery and Clancy Brown in that crumbling Scottish castle, during one of the many moments when a stone wall exploded inward on the two combatants, you could see very clearly the arm of the crew member that pushed it forward.
Yeah.
I barely had to pause the video to see it. So yeah, they're a little problematic there, but I can still nonetheless understand why this movie attained cult status. It's still at the very least an amusing novelty. I give the director, Russell Mulcahy, I think it was, some credit for some pretty imaginative camera work. There's the one bit where MacLeod flashes back to when he rescued his aide-de-camp Rachel during World War II, kind of a random flashback to the 40s so we can kill some Nazis. And the segue was like the scene that was shattering like broken glass. And suddenly we're back with Connor MacLeod in 1940, whichever.
Yeah, there's several cool segues like that in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's somewhat imaginative in that respect, and I enjoyed the flashback scenes to Connor's early life in the Scots Highlands, the lands of my forefathers. Some of those Scottish vistas were just breathtaking.
Yeah, they
were.
were.
Good location shooting there. Yeah, and Clancy Brown, of course, a fine performer. I've admired his voice work for years.
Oh, sure.
It was a little unsettling, though, to see him so monstrous and yet so young. There was something incongruous about his 27-year-old baby face on that hulking body. And yeah, that scene in the cathedral, Chris. I mean, he was a pretty imposing, intimidating antagonist at that point, but I guess he was just driven insane by the power. And in that scene, he just became, Kurgan / Brown became a figure of camp horror. I don't know how many of you have seen Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, but
No, I haven't.
Well, yeah, it's De Palma's it's a love letter to schlocky old 50s horror movies, and also his statement on the state of the music industry circa the mid-70s. It's kind of a horror comedy, and there's a character in there called Beef, who is kind of a product of the the horror rock scene of the mid-decade, like Alice Cooper and that kind of thing. Then he's kind of this big Frankensteinian singer, and Clancy Brown in that scene kind of reminded me of Beef.
Two things. One, I love hearing Murd enunciate words like beef. Two, I did some behind the scenes reading. Apparently, Murd, after that scene was shot, he actually felt he had to apologize to like the nuns present, and so forth for it. So
they were actual nuns?
I'm not sure. I read this on IMDb. I don't know if the way it was written, it led you to believe they were, but I can't say for sure.
I mean, it's filmed at the actual cathedral, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible that there may have been nuns on hand. Like maybe
Yeah.
they even did stealth shooting, like they didn't even have a permit for all we know. I don't know.
Yeah. Huh. Wow.
Well, when I mean, Murd, you discussing it just now kind of reminded me a little bit of like a Simpsons quote that's been in my head since watching the movie. You know, and you could get the quickening. That's good, but it's cursed. That's bad. But it comes with a free Frogurt. That's good.
Frogurt is also cursed.
That's bad.
But you get your choice of toppings.
That's good.
The toppings contain monosodium glutamate. That's bad.
Thanks for the assist. This movie exists, and I'm glad it does. It's not a good movie, but I am glad that it exists for many reasons. For one, when it was released, 35 years ago, I'm wearing a Street Fighter shirt for a reason, because this movie is a fighting game. Like when
That's a good way of putting it. Yep.
Good point.
Yeah,
when you come down to it, this movie is a fighting game. There can be only one, and the one guy is constantly being, round one fight from everybody around him randomly in different locations and different.
And hell, it starts with a pro wrestling match to boot.
Yes, exactly. I totally was not expecting that.
Yeah.
And it's actual real life
The Freebirds.
Yeah, the Freebirds and some classic WWF NWA action basically. And I was not expecting at all for this movie to start out that way, but it sure as heck did. Some of the worst accents I have ever heard in a movie.
Oh my god! Yes, this movie is home to the Frenchest sounding Scotsman and the Scottishest sounding Egyptian Spaniard in film history.
We.
I mean, you could make the excuse of, well, they've been around for thousands of years, so obviously their accents are confused and jilted from all the different. No, bullshit. They just they got who they got. They didn't care whether or not they could actually do the accents for the people that they were playing, and they went with it. And that's almost quaint to a point. But I do agree with Murd. A lot of the special effects are ridiculous. At points, like Evil Dead has better special effects than Highlander, and that's all claymation. So I do really appreciate the story to a point. I feel like the story, if remade today with the right actors, could actually be really serious and really well done. But we have 87 remakes, and I don't know if we really need one.
Yeah.
So that's where I fall with this. It's a campy romp, and I appreciate it for that. I just can in no way call it a good movie because it's not.
So now, when I went into it, I thought I knew what it was about, and I was for the most part correct in my thinking. Mm-hmm. But starting with seeing Clancy Brown's name in the credits, music by Queen, then the pro wrestling, I really came quickly to realize I don't think I'd seen this movie before, at least not in its entirety, that I can remember. Again, I mentioned I have the DVD of it somewhere. I really thought I'd watched it. Maybe I didn't. I know I've seen at least one of the sequels. It's either 2 or 3. I don't remember which. I'm pretty sure it's 3, though, now that I've seen 1. I've watched some of the show over the years, when it was out on TV. Mm-hmm. But as the movie progressed, I just don't remember it at all. It was like Ian says, a campy romp into the 80s. The special effects were horrible, but I expected that. I was kind of hoping for that because that's what they were like back then. Right. I expected Doctor Who 70s kind of level special effects. However, like Adam says, when you saw the arm come through the wall, pushing the rock, or when I caught the wire hanging the Highlander up from the ceiling as he's getting the prize or whatever, that they're a little bit worse, but it's still not bad. I love the premise. I like the story. I thought it was much more intensive competition between immortals to get to the end. I was surprised at how few battles there were. So again, that's just my mind's eye thinking. Maybe this is from other things I'd seen. I kind of thought they could feel each other being close.
They could.
And you kind of got a glimpse of that in this, but not what I thought. I thought it was stronger. So, and maybe these other things, the TV show, something else I've watched. I loved the flashbacks, and I liked that they were out of order, back to what, the 1800s or whatever it was, and then flashback to the present, and then to the 1940s, and then back to the present, and then flashback. I didn't mind that the flashbacks were not necessarily in order. And I loved the explanation of Rachel and his relationship to her. So I really did get a kick out of the whole movie and enjoyed watching it. The only parts that I thought were way too much was Clancy Brown kidnapping the one woman at the end and driving around the city. That just went on way too long.
Yes.
I thought, oh my God.
And killing random pedestrians, including the director, apparently.
Well, and I was okay with that to a certain extent, because that's what would happen if you're driving backwards on the wrong side of the road or whatever. You're going to hit somebody. But it just seemed to take forever to get to the next part.
At least he did it all to the tune of New York, New York, as performed by Queen.
I guess.
Forgive a lot.
I was wondering, there's that one scene where he's driving on the one bridge and he's on some spot he's not supposed to be in, constantly hitting the side of the guardrail, and you see sparks fly, and I'm thinking, my goodness, how did they ever get to film that? And what were the people on the road thinking as they saw a car barreling down that way, sparks flying the whole time?
Well, and I need to. I'm going to share. I mean, I'm sharing right now the photo of Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert in this movie. I have no idea what Christopher Lambert is wearing. It kind of looks like he just took a drape and put it over his front to make that costume happen. Sean Connery is wearing a Three Musketeers outfit that's absolutely gorgeous. And then Christopher Lambert is wearing a potato sack.
I think it's supposed to be the remnants of like what he was wearing when he was part of his clan before he was exiled.
I think so.
Yes, I guess.
His tartan, it's supposed to be a kilt.
Yeah. Or Baby Bjorn.
But that's like the costumes in this movie are incredibly interesting. I share here, we've already mentioned what Clancy Brown winds up looking like at the end of this movie. I'd love to know the fever dream that led to this.
And Adam, I completely agree. His extremely young face just does not look right.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, my first, so I know of him as Lex Luthor, of course, and I know of him as Mr. Krabs.
Right.
I also first saw him that I remembered, not realizing he was in Buckaroo Banzai all those years, because I've watched that 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
No, he is.
Oh yeah, he's one of the Cavaliers.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that one either.
But my first time really remembering seeing him live was the TV show Earth 2.
Okay.
So to see him like this completely blew me away, because he is so, it's like looking at a baby here compared to what I'm used to. Even Buckaroo Banzai, he looks a little bit more normal to what I would recognize. This is completely out of left field.
Let me say this as the person who suggested this film. I love the film, and I agree with everything you've all said.
But you love it in spite of its flaws.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as it ended, I started seeking out how to watch number 2, because I know that's terrible, but I'll watch it because now I'm curious. I want to find the one that I've watched.
Well, Shane, we good luck on that quest.
Yeah.
I think go ahead, Ian. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I just saw him in Promising Young Woman. The new movie that just came out. Clancy Brown plays the father in that. And it's interesting seeing him, grizzled and old, and then seeing him here and almost feeling like he's been photoshopped, because it's still Clancy Brown's body. It's this youthful face on top of it. And it's weird. It's really weird.
And especially as he progresses through the movie, it gets weirder.
Yes. With the small strands of hair left on his head afterwards is ridiculous.
I think regarding Clancy Brown, I remember when I was a kid, because I didn't know him from anything, because this is the first time I ever saw him in a movie. When he appeared in that armor, which I think was one of the best costumes in the whole film.
Yeah.
Like that armor is truly intimidating and frightening. And I, like a kid, I was like, I was like, just I was loving every second of it. And as I've watched the movie many times over the years, I think the scenes that still really work for me are the scenes in Scotland when he's, before he discovers he's an immortal, because when he's driven from his village, that's, to me, that's still a very jarring scene. Because they're tapping into the superstitions of the time, the religious superstitions and so forth. And when his lover turns on him and says, you're in league with the devil. And the scene that always strikes me, and this guy's been in a ton of movies. He was in Braveheart. I forget the name. He was the older man who was like the red-haired warrior who they went to battle with, and he saves him at the end. And he says, he gets him out of the village before they're going to basically lynch him, essentially.
Yeah.
And I was always struck by like how that character, still retains some ability to like kind of think critically and go, okay, let's let him get out of here alive, essentially.
Well, okay, so that scene in particular, just before he's beat in the town square and ousted from his village, when he's laying on what would be his deathbed, doesn't that guy say, no, wait, he's an immortal? No.
The priest says there are other men dying this day.
Right, but the other guy who saves him in the end, when she goes down to cry on him, he picks her up.
He says, "This is up." I know too much of the dialogue. He says he's a Highlander. The last thing you should hear is a wailing woman, something like that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't say he's
right.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. He's a Highlander.
But that's just it. Like for years before watching this movie, I thought the Highlander was the one. That I thought like that was the title.
That's what I thought too.
I did not realize that it's because he's from the Highlands that he's a Highlander. Like that makes so much more sense.
And I think the scenes in the Highlands, first of all, Sean Connery always brings a majestic presence to anything he's in.
Oh yeah.
And I think he was perfectly cast for the character he was playing. Like when he appears, like you guys said, in that musketeers-like outfit on the horse with the plume from his hat, it's perfect. Like it's Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And who cares what his accent's like? Because you're right, he's obviously not from Egypt or Spain or Japan or anywhere else.
Literally.
So
he said Egypt, and I went, really?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because he's over 2,000 years old in the movie, and it's Sean Connery, so that's enough. But the scenes between them, the training, the joke about haggis, when he knocks him off the boat, I thought the scenes were very well acted. You believe the growing kind of chemistry between them. And the scene that always really affects me is when they go to that like the marketplace, and he says, you have to leave her. And he talks about his Japanese wife, and that's where I think that the mythology behind the story I think was very compelling in those scenes. Mm-hmm. It made you really want to learn more about like, well, I want a movie about Sean Connery's entire life before this. Like, what were his adventures? Because he might have seen the crucifixion of Christ for all we know. He was around for over 2,000 years. So. That was really interesting. And as Murd mentioned, I'm a huge Queen fan. And between this and Flash Gordon, I mean, come on, the two classic 80s films with Queen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong with that. I mean, the movie starts with the Princes of the Universe. I'm just having a huge grin on my face.
I will say, once I saw that Queen did the music, I was expecting a little bit more than what we got out of it. It's still good. It's still fine. Yeah. But I was expecting more Flash Gordon level music than.
Well, yeah, because Flash Gordon, they did the entire score. Yeah. Here, they just did certain songs.
Yeah.
It's not a Flash Gordon level movie. I mean, let's be honest.
No. But I thought, oh, Queen, Flash Gordon.
I always knew they did songs for this just because I've heard the songs. So I saw the liner notes on it. I was like, okay, fine. This is from the Highlander. Okay. But I also thought they did more than what they did. They were originally only going to do one song. And then Freddie Mercury saw clips from the movie and got inspired to do more, which says a lot for what he thought of it.
Right. Yeah. Who Wants to Live Forever? The love theme is one example of that.
Yes.
Brian May put that together after he saw the scenes between Connor and Heather.
Yep.
I love the explanation of how Connor survives and the business that he's grown.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that concept. Yeah.
That whole part of the movie I loved. Going into his business, into his apartment, then talking to Rachel. I could see an hour of just that.
he had the foresight to amass antiquities from throughout his life, so he was a very wealthy man.
Yeah.
And when they go into his circular like sanctum,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, I only caught it recently. You see Sean Connery's outfit in the sanctum, by the way.
Oh,
in his
really?
hat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Huh. I'll
and
have to
there's
look for
like
that.
battle flags from different eras, and it's such that whole sequence is really cool. The way they thought of all that, and like you said, when Rachel figures out. I love the scene when she goes to like the doctor, like her detecting, like how is this guy doing this? I thought it was a very, clever way to explain all that.
Yeah.
I really like how some of that was filmed, because there's a lot of cinematography inside that room that is above, around, like different angles inside his sanctum that was just interesting to me. I really enjoyed that. I wish it was today where you would eventually get leaked out a panoramic of everything around that room so you could delve into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I kind of hope something's out there like that somewhere that I could look it up.
Well, since you mentioned, the way it looked and what have you, I will mention I tried watching this on Amazon Prime first.
That's where I watched it this time.
Yeah.
This first time. Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was the app or whether it was just my stream or what have you, but it wasn't quite in sync with the dialogue.
Oh no,
Oh.
mine was good. Mine
Yeah.
was good.
But also because my TV is 4K, it looked like it had been blown up and washed out. There were parts of the film that just did not age very well. So I
Yeah.
switched over to Peacock, and Peacock it was synced perfectly fine. Had a little bit of a lesser quality to the video, but that actually kind of helped because like it didn't seem like it was trying to be, 4K. It was just like, we're going to give you what we can give you. And that actually helped with the with the way I saw it. There was one scene though, and I don't know whether or not you guys saw this too. There's one scene near the beginning that is such a lesser quality of film than everything else. And it was near the beginning. It was like one of the like second or third shots that I remember were like, it almost looked like it switched to VHS for me. And then afterwards it was perfectly fine. Again, I don't know whether that was my stream or whether it was, just actual bad film quality, but I'd be curious to see if that's the case with, every version of it. So.
Well, one thing I love to piggyback on what Ian is talking about, when I watch movies from the 80s, like this is smack dab in like the middle of the 1980s.
Oh yeah.
Especially fantasy films from the 80s, science fiction films. They all have this quality that almost this grainy, even seedy quality. Like the scenes where the Kurgan goes into the motel are so vintage 1980s films.
Yeah.
Like the guy with like the Pat Benatar outfit and like the drunk in the corner in the old recline. Like there's just something about scenes like that is only in 1980s films, basically.
Yeah.
And that like the scenes where he's in the police station and he's sparring with the cops, like, and then there's the great character actor John Polito, who later was in Miller's Crossing and Big Lebowski. He's the assistant to the leading detective. Those scenes are like, the prostitutes cheering him on when he's tussling. Like it's just very evocative of a certain time in movies, and I think it just captures it. I eat that stuff up.
Sure. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I know you especially would know what
I mean, as bad as parts of this movie was, I really did enjoy it because it is smack dab in the middle of the 80s, and from that perspective, it's completely what I expected in a lot of ways.
And Shane, the part that I love is that it's 80s New York, because like actually filmed in New York City. Again, still feeling a little bit homesick for Manhattan since I've only been there like twice since the pandemic. And getting to see the city and all of its glory and all of its hustle and bustle is great, especially when it's 1986, because it has a certain personality to it.
Yeah.
That you don't get elsewhere. And yeah, it was that part of it was really well done.
And Ian, let me ask you a question, because this reminds me. When he meets Castigear, and I love that whole little sequence. Where is that bridge that they meet on?
That's Central Park.
A very striking image. Like it really struck me that I've never actually been on that bridge. I only know it from this movie actually. So.
I've been on it. It's been in a couple of other movies too, definitely. But I've been on that bridge before, and it is one of my favorite parts of the park. Yeah.
What is the bridge's name? Does it have a name?
I can't remember for the life of me, but I can look it up.
Bridge.
Exactly.
If you want to get fancy, the bridge.
So for me, the Kurgan is really one of my favorite parts of the film. From when Connery describes how they came from the steppes of Russia and threw their babies to ravenous dogs in the pit, I'm like, all right, I'm in right away. Like, this is fabulous. And his armor. But when he goes in that church, but the scene and just talk about deliciously enjoying being a villain. My favorite moment in the entire film is he's driven out most of the parishioners, and Connor's already left, and the priest goes up to him and he says, people are trying to pay, and he says to them, he's speaking about God, he says, he actually cares about these helpless mortals. And the priest is like, well, he died for our sins, and he just says, that will be his undoing. And I'm like, so it's so over the top villainous. I eat it up, man. It's
well,
fantastic.
and okay, so for that part in particular, while Connor's getting upset at him and kind of grabs him, the Kurgan says, something like "not here," because on holy ground you're not supposed to fight.
Holy ground, Highlander.
Yep. Remember what Ramirez taught you. Yep.
Out of all the things, I thought for sure he'd go apeshit crazy and do something in the church, and yet he's the one spouting off, "No, not here."
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing, is that even though he is who he is, he's still following the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a compelling scene, despite all like the really fun over the top villainy, because he's telling him, I raped your wife, which he didn't know about for centuries.
Yeah.
So that was, again, I found all the scenes between Connor and Heather, I thought were some of the strongest parts of the film, actually.
And I wasn't sure if he actually did that or if he was saying that just to be a jerk.
No, because he says, he thought it was Ramirez's woman.
Oh, that's true.
And then he said, I took her, and then you see Lambert realize that, and then he realizes, it was your wife.
By the way,
true.
Chris, this one's for you. This is the location, and this is the shot from the movie. It is the Bow Bridge in Central Park that was on. So if you're ever in Central Park, head on over to the Bow Bridge, and then you could be the last man standing.
And there's Lambert and Hugh Quarshie, who also played some bit part in the Star Wars prequels, as I understand.
Really?
Yep, as Castigair. I like that. I agree with what Chris said about how visually striking the bridge was.
Yes. Oh, that was a great scene.
The scene together. But it's just nice to know that McLeod has not been walking this lonely path alone all these years. He's actually made friends with some of his fellow immortals.
I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see him hook up with and adventure with some of these immortals, even if it's just to get rid of an immortal that's really over the top bad. Even though they're doing it to service their own ends to the Quickening, but still, I really would like to see some of the adventures that he came upon.
And that's what's interesting about the basic concept, is that there's so much you can do with it. And they give you little snatches of that, like, when they show him in the late 18th century in Boston, when he's in that silly duel, which was just goofy.
Drunk and refusing to die.
Yeah. And you sense that he has a very close relationship with Castigair. And again, it's like this exclusive club. They all know each other. Like the Kurgan is actually pleased to see Ramirez, and now he gets a chance to finally kill him. So they've probably met many times before. So again, not having seen any of the sequels, maybe they do go into some of the stuff. I don't know, because I've never seen any of them. But those moments, like you said, with the World War II scene, again, are really just fun, because it gives you little hints of what all this man has experienced, and what he's seen, basically. So that's one of the most enjoyable parts of the film.
Can I comment on that coat that he is wearing, and how
the trench coat?
His trench coat?
Yeah, the trench coat, and just how uncomfortable it looks on him most of the time. Like it looks like it's at least 3 sizes too large in a lot of the scenes. Sharing a picture of it now. first off, love that this still even exists of him with the totally real sword, in front of that gorgeous 80s car.
Yeah.
But um, it's just, there's something about that look that is just hobo enough for a guy who has, survived as long as he has, that works for me. But I immediately think of another character from another show that I really enjoy, Castiel from Supernatural, and how that, I'm wondering if they got his basic look from Cass
Or from Hellblazer.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Or Hellblazer.
Lambert looks very Constantinian in this film.
That is true. That is a very good point. Yeah. So it's that's immediately where my brain went, was like, oh, okay, cool. Now I get that basic premise. But yes, now that you mentioned Constantine Tyne, or however you want to pronounce it,
Alan Moore pronounced it Tyne.
Yes, and our listener is Constantine. But yeah, it's just cool to see, possibly where they might have gotten that influence from, one way or the other.
Well, Ian, I think back to a friend of mine who I've lost in touch with, who I went to college with, and he always said trench coats are modern capes. And I wore trench coats for quite a few years when I was younger, because
So did I.
Fun.
Yeah.
But
I had a nice black one.
Yeah, I had multiples, but it's kind of like how I wear cardigans today. Back then it was trench coats. But it makes sense he would wear a trench coat, because he can hide his katana in it, but also I always think of it as, it's like a modern cape, basically.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, no, I've never thought of it that way before, but now I can't unthink it. So yes.
Oh gosh, yeah. Watching the Young Guns movies, and the way Doctor Who would wear a trench coat, no matter what iteration it was.
Yes.
I always thought of it more as a flowing modern cape. Yeah.
So what did we think? I gave my thoughts on it. What did we all think about Sean Connery's presence and role in the film?
I wanted more.
Yes, I would have.
I loved it.
I would have rather seen a lot more of that than the present day stuff, to be entirely honest with you. If I had made this movie, it would have been almost all past, and then you end with present day, and then that's the second movie. I think there's enough story to be told there, where you could have very easily remained there, have your big climactic moment be the death of Sean Connery or what have you, and then get a second movie. I know Sean Connery shows up in the second movie. I have not seen it. It's the only other part he has played twice other than James Bond. I will point that up.
That is interesting.
Yeah. When I saw that the trivia, that was amazing.
If I remember correctly from what I've read, Ian, I think he was contractually bound to appear in a second one.
It's possible. I also saw in my research that he had so much fun.
I read that too. He really liked working with Lambert quite a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, like to the point where they were calling each other their characters on set rather than their names. So
it's. Again, I think that's a valid point, because you could just do so much with just his character. And again, if I remember correctly, I think he had a limited time to shoot the movie, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Which may also explain, again, I'm kind of sitting here, why he was only in it for that period of time. But again, he always lends anything he's in, that he just brings gravitas to any movie right away. That's always how I've perceived him as an actor.
Absolutely.
And just a week or two ago, I was watching Time Bandits, because I stumbled upon it and thought, I haven't seen this since I was a kid.
Isn't he Agamemnon or something like that?
Yeah, and it's only like
but it's
10
majestic.
minutes,
Yeah.
but it's great.
Yeah. Yep.
What we think of Roxanne Hart in this movie? As
I always find her performance really good, actually.
Yeah.
She's a very talented actor. She was in the great Paul Newman film, The Verdict. Like, she can really act. I liked how they really established her as being a very capable scientist and detective who figured all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Obviously she's obviously very attracted to him, and vice versa. And they established that, like, in the bar and so forth, when the song is playing, etc. But again, they have limited time, but the scenes where he goes to the apartment and like he finds the gun, and he's so experienced, like he just knows where everything is in her apartment, and like finds the gun and the tape recorder. And
Loved when he opened the thing and talked to the tape recorder.
But what I liked about it was that she is trying to figure out what's going on. Part of it is because she has a professional interest, but she's also clearly very drawn to him. And I thought that they wrote that fairly well, and I thought that was acted very well.
Right. Finding the balance between her skills as an investigator and her professionalism and her personal attraction.
Right.
Just to make sure, keep her from devolving into nothing but the love interest.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Murr, because she was, I mean, even when like they're first on the street and the Kurgan attacks, and she has the sense to throw him like that rod so he can help defend himself. So she wasn't just there just to be there. Like, you know, they clearly used her character, I thought, very effectively in the film.
And I have to bring up one of my favorite properties of all time, gargoyles, a little bit, because I could easily see the Eliza Maza type in Brent, you know, in the character of Brenda Wyatt, just like the entire movie. All I could think of was Macbeth. You know, the character from Gargoyles that's the, you know, the immortal, and just how much of this movie reminds me of the lore of Gargoyles. Like I kept expecting all of a sudden Goliath to jump in and then, you know, turn to stone or something like that. A lot of the DNA is there.
Which that's a total sidebar, but that's a great show if you've never watched it.
I've only seen bits and pieces of Gargoyles.
Yeah. The first couple episodes, like any other show, but man, it really gets so much better as it goes on.
Is that on any platforms right now, or
Disney Plus?
Disney Plus.
It is. Okay, great.
Yeah, the third season is iffy because by then they had switched to ABC and the showrunners changed and it wasn't nearly as good. But the first two seasons, plus if you can find the slave labor graphics comic books,
slave labor graphics, wow,
are all excellent stuff. Yeah.
That's the long list of Disney properties I'll be investigating over.
Oh yeah, and it's a huge chunk of the Star Trek Next Generation cast are in it.
Yes,
with Riker, Deanna, it was wonderful.
Oh, I'll definitely have to check that out.
Michael Dorn was the only one of those I was aware was on the show.
Yep. Xanatos, the main villain, is voiced by Riker. So
yep.
The other thing that struck with speaking about the female characters, I really enjoyed the concept of the Rachel character and how basically, you know, he raises her.
Oh yeah.
And at the end when he leaves her, because he's immortal, you almost get the sense that she's kind of also kind of in love with him too, because you know, he never ages and now she's like a full grown, like middle-aged woman. So, you know, does she see him as like a father or as like, you know, this more romantic figure kind of, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah. I thought very much a Florence Nightingale kind of effect from saving her, raising her, and then trusting her with everything as life went on.
And I love the little Queen reference, you know, hey, it's a kind of magic, which of course is another Queen song, but.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, one of the little bits of trivia here, since we were talking about costumes and what have you, the original idea for the look of the Kurgan would have been almost Clockwork Orange-esque, as Clancy Brown. Yeah, he wanted him in a bowler hat and a very nice looking suit. So I think that would have been a very, very different Kurgan than the punk rock supreme Kurgan that we got later on in the movie. And I wonder just how different the movie would have been without that striking visual.
And part of me, when he took on that persona, all I could also think of was the punk rock from the bus on Star Trek 4.
Would you mind turning that down, please?
Oh man!
The great thing about the Kurgan's look is that the Kurgan is a savage, and you know, when you go back to when he first appears in that really, I think again, spectacular armor, and then when he attacks Ramirez later, the armor's like kind of half gone. He's kind of adapted it; it's not the full suit anymore. And then we go to the 1980s. He's got the intimidating car, you know, he's got the music, he's got the whole look, and it just for me it just works. The scene where the prostitute visits his motel room,
yes,
and he's like lovingly having his moment with his sword. Like it's almost, it's like for him, that's like it probably got about as spiritual as things get. And I'm Candy. Of course you are. Again, it's so over the top and perfect. I just eat it up.
Okay, now with the Kurgan, in the beginning, when they're going into battle against
the two clans.
Connor,
he
says Connor's his, and he knows why.
Oh yeah.
Why wouldn't Connor know that already?
I think we're led to believe that because he hasn't died yet, right? He's not aware of his true nature.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Whereas you assume the Kurgan has already died, and the Kurgan dies that day because you assume that Connor's kinsmen kill him.
Sure.
And they all tackle him on the field, but they don't know to cut his head off, so he just recovers eventually. But those scenes when they have him in the bed when he's still in Scotland, and he's got the wound and the lights are flashing, and they go to him, the crime scene under the garden, and those transitional scenes I thought were really fun. The water, the fish tank becomes the lake they're in, or it's him brooding, then it becomes like the Mona Lisa image on the wall, and there's.
And I even got a kick out of
the director really had some imagination for it.
Oh, sure. I got a kick out of the cheesiness of when he got knocked off the boat falling and talking underwater, and you could hear him talking like he was underwater. Like, I got a kick out of that.
And then he's moving his sword around. Yep.
Yeah.
There were a couple of transitions that were almost like Star Wipey. Like really and Star Wipe and cut one particular from past to present where like they go from the past and then it like fades into like the bookcase was not my favorite. That one was a little bit of a step too far, but there were other transitions that worked a lot better. A lot of the ones that you mentioned actually were pretty cool.
The one
I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, on the subject of transitions, right after the big love scene between Connor and Brenda, which is like a couple seconds of them pawing at each other in bed, and then suddenly we jump cut to the lion cage at the zoo. Yeah. The juxtaposition was
that is jarring. That is jarring. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we think of the opening battle between him and I forgot the name of the Polish immortal? In the parking garage under the garden.
It was good. I thought it would be a little bit more choreographed, less running away from each other.
Yeah.
Well, I love when the guy is doing the flips for no reason under the sprinklers. Like, no one's shooting at you, dude.
Yes.
Like, he's just doing it right down the eye.
The guy was definitely the same actor and not a stunt double.
Yeah.
I actually would have really enjoyed had there been a little bit more back and forth between like the wrestling match and them, where like you see the wrestling moves happening and then seeing them fighting back and forth, and then like maybe like they go for a pile driver or something like that.
Yeah.
When you see his head
they did that a little bit, Ian, with when he's thinking about Scotland, and they did that with the wrestling a little bit. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that might have worked a little bit better for that opening fight, but it did bring me into the movie pretty well because it's like, okay, we're already here. This is already happening, which is pretty cool.
And I remember. Go ahead, Shane. Go ahead.
You were talking about the lions. Did you get the sense that they, meaning the lions, knew he wasn't right for how vicious they were growling at him, and then he just kind of looked at them and they calmed down a little bit?
You know what? I never thought about that, but that may be the case.
Because he did that somewhere else too in the movie. I forget where.
Well, there's a scene when that police officer he was sparring with, they're in the interrogation room and the cop's trying to be intimidating, and he just looks at him and the cop just turns away.
But it was something more akin to, well, there was that, but there was something more akin to when him and Sean Connery's character were feeling that deer or
feel the stag. Yeah.
And they could feel it, and you could hear it then as they were engrossed in it. I kind of got that from the lions, and God, there was some other animal I thought he did it with too, but I can't remember what.
I never thought about that. That's a great point, Shane. Yeah.
Am I the only one who would wear stag cologne, by the way, with that slogan, feel the stag?
I just love hearing Sean Connery enunciate words like stag.
Yes. And did you know, speaking of trivia and words, that Chris Lambert voiced himself in the French dub?
No. That's cool.
So he gets
pretty cool, yes.
Yeah, so he gets to use his own language, the one that he
Wow.
should have been in the movie. They should have just made him French if they were going to
Yeah.
cast Christopher Lambert.
But by the way, just another interesting bit of trivia. He is almost blind.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Like he is so, you probably find it very quickly online, and he is so badly nearsighted. Apparently, for whatever reason, he can't wear contact lenses.
Huh.
So when you see him in public, he has glasses on. So in a lot of these scenes, like when he's dueling or riding a horse, whatever he's doing, I don't think he could barely see.
Wow.
Explains a
Wow.
lot, actually.
How so, Murd?
Well, just the way he seems to be a bit out of focus
Yeah.
during his acting. Like, he looks like he's staring at something a million miles away while he's interacting with someone standing right next to him.
Huh.
But yeah, that's okay. So that helps to explain.
Yeah, I actually found a picture of his million yard stare that I'll share real quick, which kind of says that to me. Like the way he's looking at the camera right there does not say I can see you. It's just sort of just like looking in that general direction of the camera, being like, I hope this is the right way to look. I'll have to look at it, see if it's astigmatism or anything.
I'm not sure. I've read about it, but I don't know all the details. But
that's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, and to do all that stuff while being that nearsighted, that's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
well, prior to this, he was known for playing Tarzan, right, in the Legend of Greystoke.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Which I think he barely actually spoke in, if I remember correctly. Because
Yeah.
I think he'd only recently learned English when he filmed this movie.
What year did that Gray Skull?
Greystoke?
Greystoke. Geez, Gray Skull. Greystoke come out.
What, Ian, 84 maybe? 85?
I can look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of thinking that was one of the drive-in movies we saw as a kid, with whatever else was playing
Tarzan,
at that
Legend
time.
of Greystoke?
Yeah.
Let's see. Looking it up right now, and Greystoke was 84.
84.
Interesting.
Okay. What do we think of his relationship with Heather, how that was portrayed in the movie?
Oh, I thought that was sweet.
I thought it was one of the most affecting parts of the movie, actually.
Yeah.
I thought it was incredibly sweet. I thought the old age makeup was terrible.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It was.
Their idea of old age makeup was like, let's put her in a wig. Let's just put her in a wig.
They put a few wrinkles on her
A little
cheeks.
extra pancake.
That's fair. That's fair. Look, Jean-Luc Picard's old age makeup looked better than that in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there have been there's been some old age makeup that worked better years before this too that I'm thinking of, like, back in the 60s and 70s. And then like we reached a point where they kind of forgot how to do it for a while, and then we're just like, let's put on some old, padding of the makeup and then the wig and see what happens. And it didn't quite work here. I like the sentiment, just not the best.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
The scene where and again, these are really my favorite parts of the movie, but when they're at the marketplace and Connery's telling, like, you have to leave her brother, and when he's looking at her, like buying her dress and like talking to children, you can really see how much he loves her. And it's good acting, and he can't bear to part from her. It's very well done, and that's where the Queen music, I think, is all, because they kind of, I think they orchestrated at that point, is very effective.
And I like throughout the rest of the movie, you're brought back to her, until she passes away. But then in the cathedral, he lights a candle for her, just like he promised. Like, I thought that was a very sweet. Very
and then the Kurgan smashing all the candles down.
Okay, that was great.
I really hope he enjoyed that role, because it looked like he was.
Oh, he was having the time of his life. You could clearly see that. And really, I mean, he could probably thank most of his voice acting after this for his appearance in Highlander, because, that's where people knew him from more than anything else.
Yeah.
And his voice is so distinct in this.
Oh, yeah.
That it just proved that he could do anything, and even be Lex Luthor, which he did.
If nothing else,
I
it was
really
the best
thought-
audition tape he ever made.
Yeah. I really thought the way it looked, Sean Connery looked like he was having the time of his life doing it too.
Oh, yeah. So here's a question. IMDb trivia, which is always reliable and it never went wrong, says that originally Kurt Russell was cast in the role of Connor.
I would not have liked that.
Yeah.
Accurate.
I can picture it too. I'm just wondering if the movie would have worked.
Kurt Russell's a versatile actor. He can do a lot of different
Oh
things.
yeah, I just prefer him in Big Trouble with Little China, Tango
Or
and
Escape from New York.
Cash, Overboard, Escape from New York. Like, I prefer all that. I don't think this would have worked so well.
He apparently dropped out because of Goldie Hawn, who told him to.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So go figure. And one more interesting bit of trivia, since we mentioned the opening monologue by Sean Connery,
right?
The voiceover that was recorded in the bathroom of his Spanish villa. That's why it has that echo effect. That echo effect was not put on. That's bathroom.
Nice.
Serendipity. It worked wonderfully.
Yes, it did. Yep. I kind of breached this before, so I assume we don't want to see a modern day remake of this. Like, we don't want to see what it would look like today.
Well, I think you have to walk that fine line, not because I don't want to see a remake of it, but because the show was much more modern. And I know it's different in a lot of ways, but there is a connection between the show and the movies.
Doesn't Lambert appear in almost everything?
He does. One of the movies, one of the shows.
Of the series, but only the first.
But there's some other connection where they come together too beyond the show. I thought in another movie. I'd have to look again, but I think I don't think it would be a bad idea to redo it, but I think do it very well, and maybe do it with different characters. Maybe not just follow a McLeod at all, but a similarity in the Immortals. And
as we've mentioned, the basic premise is so rich with storytelling possibilities that you like, even within this movie, like, I want to know more about Castigear. I want to know more about, what happened with Rachel in World War II. Like those are all stories in themselves that you could do a lot with that. So
yeah, the last of the Highlander movies that he was in was Highlander: The Final Dimension in 1994. Okay. That's the last one that he showed up. I'm not sure if it was both of them or if it was just a Connor McLeod movie, but that's the last time that he appeared as the character. So, all right. So I guess anything else we want to bring up about said movie? Anything that I
just want to thank you all, gentlemen, for this indulgence. It's a fun part of my childhood.
I'm glad. Again, I thought I watched it. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I got to experience it. And for all its faults, I still enjoyed it as a great 80s fantasy movie. I put it up there with Terminator and Time Bandits and, Buckaroo Banzai and all kinds of other ones that I enjoyed at that time frame.
Well, it's part of the ongoing mission of our retro review sequence to always bring in films that if we had the show back then, we would have definitely talked about them.
Yeah.
And this is a piece of history that I'm glad that I finally got to experience, because like it's been referenced so many times on so many different things, and to finally have that piece, work in my head. Like to admit, I've still never seen Seven, but I know what's in the box.
I've seen that movie once for sure, maybe twice. I won't watch that one again.
Yeah.
By the way, Ian, I'm thinking about how you talked about the special effects. If I remember correctly, when they have the swords giving off sparks when they're dueling, I think they had car battery wires running through their sleeves to create that effect. You can it's probably on IMDb. I think I read that somewhere. But considering how we talked about the special effects of this movie, that makes perfect sense if that's how they did it.
It absolutely makes sense. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna. I'm without even looking it up on IMDb. It happened. That sounds completely believable, Chris.
Which also could explain why they wore gloves.
Yes,
whatever they were laced with.
Good point.
And like I've seen better special effects on the first lightsabers in the Star Wars movie. Like it's I could see what they were going for with like the slashing and the clashing and all that, but it doesn't look quite great superimposed like that. So.
Yet it's perfect.
It had a budget of $19 million. Was that particularly high in 1986? Because it doesn't feel like it
think
should.
So.
No, that doesn't really sound that high. Although, let's see, what's $19 million in today's money? Let's see.
Good idea.
$10.
Today.
$1.50.
So $100 in 1986 is $238.67.
Hmm.
So we could piece that together a bit just from that alone. It's
Close on to 50 million, I think.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So a $50 million budget today, not that big.
No, not at all.
Not for a movie of this type of scope, basically.
No.
Yeah.
So
Not at all.
And I'm if nothing else, even if I dislike the whole movie, which again I don't, I loved where they filmed all those past scenes in Scotland.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely gorgeous
yes,
scenery.
absolutely. I mean, that
Beautiful.
it made the movie for me. Those sequences alone made the movie for me.
And I mean,
That's
I
coming
like
from a New Yorker. You know, like I could do without the New York part. Just give me more Scotland.
I like where I live, but boy, I can't believe people actually get to live in those places and see that every day.
Oh my god. Yep, absolutely.
all right,
Aaron, how
how many
many-
swears, gentlemen?
Yeah, let's start it off with you, Chris.
Wow.
Putting you on the
All
spot.
right, my nostalgic passion matches with reality. I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay, Shane.
I'm going to give it the same thing because if we were going to go with two categories of a movie, a 3, nostalgia, and for what it was, a 5, yeah, I'm going with a 4.
Murd.
I enjoyed it.
2.5. I don't regret having seen it. It had its redeeming qualities, but not exactly rushing back.
Yeah, I'm about where you are, Murd. I'll go slightly higher and go 2.75.
2.75.
Yeah, I think the Jean-Claude Van Damme called. He wants his accent back, and I think that in the right hands today, if done right, it could be a excellent remake, an excellently well done movie. But instead, we have this, and that's also fine. You know, it's 1986 in every single way, and I'm
Yep,
all right.
exactly.
With it. Yeah,
And you made a great point, Ian. It's a fight film, right? It's like going back to your T-shirt. So
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like it is. You know, he is the special. You know, he is the, you know, to make a Lego movie reference. Like he's the one guy
Yeah.
who, you know, matters the most in this movie.
and to create a sense of continuity, he was later in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, which is getting a remake, and I
Yeah.
did the trailer for it, and it looks like it might be amazing. So we shall see.
I'll skip that one for now.
I am perfectly okay with that. I will let you know how it is, Shane. Either way,
Okay.
and there can be only one person challenging Murd.
Got to be doing the air bagpipes tonight.
Yeah, I
Just
couldn't
don't
find
do it like Ross on Friends.
I couldn't find a Scottish version, so we just went ahead and went with the normal here. Yep, but it is indeed time once again for Muddle the Murd, and Murd has more on how you can muddle him.
Indeed, I do. All right, folks, if you'd like to try your hand at muddling the Murd, you need to know your way around comics trivia. You need to come up with 3 comics trivia questions to submit to me, the Murd, at comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. Put Muddle the Murd in the subject line. You're going to need 1 Marvel Comics trivia question, 1 DC, and 1 about some other publisher's comics. Also, one of the questions has to be about comics published before 1970, 1 about comics published between 1970 and 2000, and 1 about comics published after 2000. So just send in your trio of questions, and Ian, our quizmaster, will ask them of me, and if I get all 3 of them wrong, you will have successfully muddled the Murd. And right now, the prize one can win for doing so. I mean, it's not, omniscience. It's not being everything and knowing everything, and no. But it is, it's pretty neat in its own right. You can win
Getting a
some
cool
drawer boxes
sword.
right now. Yes, it's the Drawer Box Prize Pack from our friends at the Collection Drawer Company. Go to collectiondrawer.com to learn more about their products. But Successful Muddler right now, we have 2 such prize packs left, can win 5 drawer boxes of an either short box or long box size, Muddler's choice, and also some dividers and box locks anchors thrown in for good measure.
Yep. And please make sure that the questions have to do with the main plot and premise of the comic. Make sure that it's not about the bleed on page 93 in Marvel Presents or something like that, and make sure that as well it has nothing to do with the letters page nor the advertisements in it, even if it's an advertisement for Highlander on VHS. We cannot accept that. It has to be about the comic book. So there we are. And today's challenger is Adam Sams. Adam Sams has these fine words before his questions. Hi, geeks. I just want to say that the podcast has been a great source of entertainment during the lockdown here in Canada, and I hope that you and your families are all doing well and staying safe. Thank you very much for those kind words there, sir.
Lucky
especially for one of the finest countries on earth, Canada. a country we could learn much from.
Yes, and I did hear what you said there, Shane, and yes, lucky son of a bitch still has a Toys R Us. Yes.
Yep. I watch videos now and then, and they're all over toy hunting in Canada, and I'm like, oh God, I miss Toys R Us. So much easier.
Well, since many of us are trapped inside with not much else to do beside read comics, I thought I would return and try my hand at muddling the Murd. This time, I will be asking questions that play to Adam's strengths. And we begin with...
Sporting of you, Adam.
Indeed. Adam to Adam here. And we begin with DC Comics pre-1970, The Atom, issue 13, July 1964. In the opening pages of this comic, titled Weapon Watches of the Time-Wise Guy, we are introduced to a character who is a famous Hungarian clockmaker. This clockmaker has created 6 masterpieces. In each of these clocks, he has hidden valuable jewels he hopes will be used by his daughter, Eva, to fund Hungarian refugees' escape from a tyrannical government. Due to a train accident, these clocks never find their way to Ava. Instead, they are put up for auction, where one is purchased by Kronos. While admitting the internal workings of the clock, while admiring the internal workings of the clock, Kronos discovers the hidden jewels and becomes obsessed with finding the other clocks to get the other hidden jewels. What is the name of this famous clockmaker? Hint. This character also appears in the Atom number 28, cover date 1967.
Wow. Okay, when Adam said he was going to be playing to my strengths, I didn't think he meant Hungarian clockmakers. I'm having a hard time even coming up with a Hungarian-sounding name to guess. Jeez. Bartok.
Any of you gentlemen know Hungarian?
I wouldn't even dare.
All right. Well, the correct answer is Anton Telhas. Anton Telhas is the
okay.
Yep. All right.
I'd like to know how Cronus found out about the other gems.
Yeah, right. We'll have to find that out. Moving over to Marvel, 1970 to 2000, the Fantastic Four issue 292, cover date July 1986. In this issue, we see the Human Torch, the Invisible Woman, and She-Hulk trapped in the year 1936. I think I see what the theme is now. They rush to Berlin to prevent Nick Fury from assassinating Adolf Hitler, believing this would have catastrophic impacts on the future, as we've seen in many a movie. Before they were able to stop him, Fury manages to make his way through Hitler's secret mansion, and after subduing the guards, finds himself face to face with Hitler. Fury, with his gun against Hitler's head, claims that he is avenging the deaths of 2 friends. What are the names of these 2 friends?
Oh, boy. Who are the Howlers that didn't make it out of the big one? I can see Chris is struggling with this one, too. Oh, my. Unfortunately, most of the members of the Howling Commandos that I can think of because they survived to have future adventures. Oh, boy. Sam Sawyer and Dino Martelli.
Chris, any guess?
Is one of them Juniper? Or Junior or something like that?
You are correct, actually. Yes. One of them is Junior Jupiter.
Yeah, that was Jupiter or Juniper?
Jupiter.
Jupiter. He was one of the one Howling Commando I know was killed
Okay.
Um,
any guesses for the second? Hint: it is of the female persuasion.
She was a British woman that Fury fell in love with. I can't remember because just a little behind the curtain, I have a whole Nick Fury spotlight ready to go.
Nice.
And I did research on this, but it was back in the summer. I can't remember her name.
Okay. Well, the correct answers are Junior Jupiter and Pamela Hawley.
There you go. Yep.
Junior is killed in action while on a mission with Sergeant Fury and the Howley Commandos. Pamela is a British Red Cross nurse.
She was killed in a bombing raid, I think.
Indeed. Yep.
Yeah.
During a Nazi air raid.
Yep.
All right. We are down to our
Good question.
final question. Yes, these are excellent questions.
Yeah.
Adam of Earth 13, as he calls himself in the thing here. Adventure Time issue 6, July 2012 is the Kaboom Entertainment post 2000 question here. In this issue, Princess Bubblegum reveals her biggest creation to date, a real working time machine. Finn and Jake burst in asking questions about the time machine, and Jake tries to steal it. While PB is explaining the machine can only be used for emergencies because its time travel capabilities are finite, Jake accidentally breaks equipment in the lab. Jake presses the time travel button and goes back in time before he broke the equipment. They proceed to use the machine for a variety of emergencies, such as stubbing their toe, eating massive amounts of cake,
Such a good show.
losing a game of rock, paper, scissors, etc. How far back in time can they go each time they press the button? Bonus points if Adam can correctly guess the number of times they press this button.
Oh, brother. 5 minutes.
90 seconds.
Ugh.
Yep. And Finn and Jake pushed the button a total number of 88,121 times.
Those bonus points were going to elude me no matter what.
All
Well,
right.
that's
Muddled.
without a doubt a successful muddle. Congratulations, one Adam to another. But he mentions that he lives in Canada.
Let's see.
Yeah, because they won't ship outside of the United States.
Yeah, I'm afraid
right?
those
Ah.
Dropbox prize packs cannot be shipped outside of the continental U.S.
Do we have something else we can send to him?
We can certainly find something, and we certainly
Yeah.
shall. Yes, I'll look through my stuff as well and see if there's anything that I have lying around, and if not, then we can always check the studio and try to find
Oh
something.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh yes, I've got prizes actually in reserve.
Oh,
Before
terrific.
I knew
Okay.
that the collection drawer folks were going to step forward with these prize packs. We'd already exhausted our supply of original art, so I've got some other things in mind. So
Oh, terrific.
we'll see if you get something, Adam, for your
Yes, most definitely. Yep, and thank you very, very much for these excellent questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Adam to Adam, timey-wimey. Well done.
Up and Adam, it's Adam in.
All righty. So I think that's pretty much it, unless we have anything else on the docket, gentlemen.
Just a tonic for the spirit as always, brothers.
Nope, that was good.
Yes, indeed. Yep, and we'll be back with another retro movie review sometime soon, and we've got some thinking to do for our best ofs. We got a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline.
And let's just remind people to continue to submit their best of nominations.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Indeed. And what is that email address again, Murd?
Best of BESTOF at comicgeekspeak.com.
Excellent. Yep, and you have until the 28th to get those in 11:59 p.m. on the 28th. So technically the 1st, but we'll say 11:59. If you get it in at 12:01, we might have a little bit of leniency. Just
I'm pretty sure we can slip you in.
exactly. Yeah. Either way.
Murd equals mercy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
We've got another T-shirt slogan.
Murd is love. Murd is love.
Yeah, but full frontal murdity comes first. That's that is 100% becoming a T-shirt. And I thank we had a listener on the YouTube give me the exact timestamp on that, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's cut out for future reference so that I can keep that for prosperity's sake. That was what a way to end previews last episode, my friend. What a way to end previews.
Yeah, I'm going to have to post that sketch card on the forums.
Yes, you are. Yes.
And I might as well mention at this point that I was actually wrong. It's not Dave Dwanch's artwork at all. It's Lynn Workman's.
Ah.
Yeah, so he and Dwanch, I think, both contributed to like a round-robin style storytelling experiment starring the CGS Geeks, which was published on a very limited basis for one of the Super shows.
Nice.
So that panel is that card is a panel that Lynn Workman drew. So sorry, Lynn, I misattributed your work.
Well, either way, it's still excellent, and
It really is.
and we all look forward to seeing that at some point.
It's a special sentimental value to me.
Sure is. And one more thank you out there to everybody over at the Patreon at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. Anything you can give, even if it's $1 a month, is more than enough.
Oh, yes.
And we thank you so much for your continued support. Keeps the lights on and keeps the lights on also on the video. So, that also helps. So patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As I give the salute. And Shane, are you ready?
Shane
Ready?
Aru.
Okay, let's make it happen. Let me share the screen. Let's do that sucker right there with the thingy and the stuff. And boom.
Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com. To send us an email, the address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com. Let us know what you think of The Highlander, or if it's your first time watching it, as most of us found out it was. Comment on this episode. And I totally screwed that up because I lost my train of thought. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Thanks to everyone who contributes to the episode. Send in your Muddle the Murds. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters. We appreciate it. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
I like that Cobra Trooper.
Was that a Ming the Merciless pop figure?
Oh, yeah. Shane gave it to me.
and I'll throw this into the audio when it's spliced in, but I'm Spanish and I don't know a lick of Spanish.
While being from from Egypt.
That's the Chicago way. All right.
Oh, that's a great one too.